Hello, Suzanne here from mBraining for Success. I decided this morning I was going to combine my marathon diary, which I put on Facebook, and my answer to questions, how do you use mBraining in practice? And I thought I'd share with you some of how I'm using it to be able to run a marathon. And yeah, you haven't heard wrong. I've signed up to do the Auckland Marathon with 3 colleagues from Unitec in November. We're running for the Blind Foundation, but more importantly, we're running for a great guy called Matt. Jenny's brother, Jenny, who I work with. And Matt is such an inspiration. He's had visual problems for many years, and he's recently been registered blind. He's waiting for his own guide dog. Now, does he give up, sit in a corner, expect to be looked after? No, far from it. He's got his own job, and he's just bought his own house, and he's such an inspiration. We want to say, we're doing this for you, Matt. And many of you will know that I had my own visual problems recently. Minor in comparison to what Matt is facing, and yet it made me realise how precious eyesight was. And so we're honoured to be running for the Blind Foundation, and I will send round sponsorship details later so that you can join us. But for today, I wanted to answer how am I using mBraining in a practical way in my own life to make this happen. Well, anyone who knows me knows running a marathon's quite a challenge. It's setting quite a high goal to achieve. I'm overweight, at least 3 stone overweight, so it's like running with a big backpack on my back. I'm not the fittest person in the world, although 2.5 years ago we did successfully run, Jenny and I, a half marathon for the Hospice West Auckland. So there's some muscle memory in there, hopefully, but it's really feeding back into that, accessing that in a new way. Subsequent to that, I've had major abdominal surgery twice and been running on virtually no iron reserves. So I'm setting myself a big challenge. So when I was asked, would I be part of the team, would I run? What do you think happened? People who know me, you know I'm very head-based. Did I think it through? Did I wonder whether I could? No, surprisingly, I gave an absolute heartfelt response, and my heart just said yes. It was something I had wanted to do for a long time. I don't know why. I want to be able to say I've run a marathon. I want to be able to prove to myself I can do something that is a real stretch physically. And yeah, I want to support Matt and the Blind Foundation. So it was a real heartfelt response. The want, the passion, it was absolutely there. However, when I started talking to other people about what I had done, they thought I was absolutely crazy. So my head decided to start to put doubts, different stories. I can't. What if you don't? What if you injure yourself? All of those wonderful stories the head does so well that are not always helpful. So in an mBraining practice group, I worked through this process of having signed up for a marathon. And the way that I got my head on board and aligned was to allow it to do what it does beautifully, the strategy, the planning. I realised I didn't have a plan. I didn't know how I was going to do it. And so I, the very next day, sat and looked at the web and wrote off, copied off an 18-week plan for running a marathon as a beginner. Slight problem, they assumed you could run 30 minutes straight off. So I've had to extend that another 10 weeks, ahead of that the pre-training schedule. And we're all now in about week 5 or 6. And this morning, yay, I ran 28 minutes without stopping. So I'm on schedule to be able to pick up that 18-week plan and hopefully on schedule to run the marathon. So the head, I had to let it do its planning, its strategy. It had to come to the party. It had to know that it was doing the how. And it's done that, and I thank the head for doing that. The other thing I've done in the head is actually change the story, change the words, change the thinking. So I now say to myself, I am training for a marathon. I am a runner. And that links beautifully with gut as well, because it begins to change identity. But the story and the words come from the head. So they have to be in line and right first. And now they are. So that leaves me to, I have this wonderful heartfelt response. I really want to do this. I have the head in place with a plan, knowing how. Did I get up that first week out of bed early? Because it's winter here in New Zealand now, so it's dark before I leave for work and it's dark when I get home. So the only real chance to run is first thing in the morning. I get up about 6:15. Did I get out of bed that first week? No. So my gut still wasn't on board. So I had to do some extra work talking to my gut. What did it need? How could it come to the party too and give me that motivation? It's not a courage issue for me. I know I can do it. If I set my mind to something, I've got that strength, that courage. That's not a problem. It was the motivation to get out of bed. And what I had to do was negotiate between my gut and my head that moment when you wake up. And I wake up and I glance at the clock and I see it's 10 past, 6:15. Perfect timing. I've woken naturally. I've not disturbed my sleep. In that moment of seeing the clock, I have to start to flick the quilt away and get out of bed before my head can begin to have the conversations about, maybe just today I'll stay in. I'm quite comfortable. Maybe no, it wouldn't really matter to the whole plan if I didn't get out today. So I have given my gut permission in that first moment to literally spring me out of bed so that any of the conversations that happen in the head happen after I'm up. And by then I can rationalize them and say, but I'm up already. I've already made that decision. I'm already out of bed. I might as well go anyway. The other thing I've done, coming right back to heart, is looked at what happiness and joy and everything means to me in terms of how that is played out. How do I feel it? Where do I feel it? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What color is it? And for me, it's like a little fireworks display going off in my heart. So I make sure that when I'm running, I've got the right verbal script running, and I also make sure that there's this firework display running so that I'm running and enjoying it. And indeed, recently I had a little bit of a stomach upset, I had a cold, and I had a few days off running, and I missed it because I actually enjoy getting up and getting out on the street. However, does that mean it just happens now that I've got all three brains in a line? No, I still have to put that energy in. I still have to make those decisions. I still have to act on those plans, that strategy. And even then, I might have to adjust it. So I was doing really well and extending the time. However, I got to the point at the bottom of a hill where I was stopping because I told myself I couldn't run up hills. So I had to let my head go wild again. Go and find out how you physically run up hills. You will have seen on Facebook, I asked other runners, how do you do it? Modeling. I looked up on the web, I got some tips. So this morning in my 28-minute run, I managed to run up the first hill and then across a fairly flat bit before the second hill, and I started up the second hill before I stopped. I was so happy with myself. I was so pleased with what I had achieved. Am I up the top of that second hill yet? No, but I've made a good improvement. And one of the biggest shifts in that was learning to distract my mind while I'm running so that it can't run those stories of you can't, what if you don't, looking at the hill and saying, it's a huge hill ahead of you. So by completely and utterly distracting my head mind, my head brain as I'm running, I managed to allow my gut and my heart to have more of a play so that I got much further and felt much easier at the top of that second hill. So we're on a journey. It is a marathon diary I'm sharing with you, but I really wanted to just share how I'm using mBraining in a very practical way, and also to be completely honest with you that it's not a one-off process that you then leave behind and everything beautifully falls into place. What it does is opens up the chance of you being successful, of you achieving what it is you want to achieve. You still have to take action. It still requires investment, and it may well still require some tweaking along the way to find out more information, or to tweak the goal, or to tweak the timing. In my case of the marathon, that time that I started to set initially was, I'm never going to beat any records. I just want to get round, feel good, and if I get round in 6 hours, I'll be very happy. After 5 weeks, I'm now thinking, well, if I could do it in 5.5, that would be truly awesome. So things will adjust and things will evolve. And remember, mBraining's all about aligning your three brains in order to access and allow a new level of wisdom to emerge. And what's beautiful now is that heartfelt passion initially about why I was doing this for me, to prove that I could, because I wanted to, just because I wanted to be able to say I could do it. There's other stuff bubbling up now that is coming out that wouldn't have come up before, about health and well-being, about my weight, about goal setting, about identity, and that other wisdom is bubbling through as the brains align, and I can feel the movement of energy between those three brains just flowing beautifully and easily, and it makes such a difference. So when people say to me, how do you use mBraining? That was just one example, and as I was running this morning, my idea was that I would do this video to share with you how I use this on a practical basis. So I hope that's useful to you. I hope it gives you just some ideas of how we're using the foundational sequence, i.e. the order you access the brains, heart being first, that's important. And also the foundational not only the foundational sequence, the map, the roadmap in terms of moving from communicating with the brains to then bringing them into alignment, and then allowing wisdom to evolve that pushes you through to action that probably never would have happened. So does mBraining work? It certainly does, but watch this space. We're a long way off the marathon at the moment. So do keep encouraging me on that marathon diary. I love getting your feedback. I love getting the encouragement. I love the jokes, love the fun, and really appreciate you being with me on the journey. Thanks, and I'll speak to you soon.